Alright, this morning we're going to learn about dates and variables. And so we're going to store some dates in variables here. And just to note some of the things that we can do in case we want to call the same date, or of course we want to change some information or keep a date held. So the first thing I'm going to do is we're going to use the new date since we went over that. And we're going to call this a variable vDate. And this is going to be equal to new date. Okay, and then when we call the vDate, we will notice that it returns the value of the current date. Okay, now if I were to set this value to yesterday, which is going to be 2014, it's going to be the 6th, not the 6th month, but since it starts at 0, it is the 6 months per this, and then it'll be the 7th day. And then I call vDate, and I call yes, and we'll notice that it returns yesterday's date. This could be really useful, again, if we have some algorithms and we want to store a date and then we want to compare information. It can be useful to actually just store, especially if the date we're comparing is the same date. Be useful to store it. Okay, some of the other things we can do, we can also do the same thing with ISO date. So what I'm going to do here is the ISO, and then I'm going to set this equal to new, or I think this is just ISO date. Oops. Definitely have to spell it right. And then if we call the ISO, we'll get that. We can also store a string date. So if we do variable v string date, and we can set that equal to our date operator that we learned, and then call the string date, and we get that. So as you see, we can save these dates in variables, and this comes in very handy, especially with algorithms in which are all about, let's say, comparing one date to another date, or especially, let's say we have a function and we're looking at a change of date. So we have, let's say, today's date, and we want to look at yesterday's date. Yes, you could do an add operator, like a date add operator or whatnot, or the equivalent of, I should say, a date add operator. However, if you are referring to the same date, it might actually be better to just store the variable and then just call the variable instead. And so that's always a handy trick to use. It's all about performance, so if you know it's going to perform better to do it that way, use it always performs quicker. Usually when there's like a function that we apply, this happens a lot in SQL Server, when there's a function that we apply to dates and we're looking at a range or whatnot, that actually is more of a drain than just having a variable and looking at that.